Hey, this is Marty Friedman. I'd like to welcome you to my video for Day 1 Beginners. A lot of this stuff is ultra simple, common sense stuff that's very basic, but stuff that you all need to know to become guitar players. Everything in this video is going to be really simple stuff that you can do as soon as I show it to you. Really easy. And a lot of the type of things that I'm going to show you today are like stuff that took me like 3 or 4 years to figure out, but you're going to figure it out in about an hour and a half. A lot of common sense, kind of silly questions that you're afraid to ask people because maybe you're a little embarrassed. You don't want people to think that you suck or anything. So you just don't ask, but that way you don't find out, you know. But this time, in this video, I'm going to explain all the things straight from the bottom up, and it's going to be really simple. So let's go. Let's talk about buying your first guitar. First rule is do not get ripped off. There's a lot of music stores out there and they all want your business. So just don't buy the first one that you see. Shop around and get some prices and be tough about it. And once you start buying the guitar, you can get them to throw in stuff for you for free, you know, like cords and tuners and straps and stuff like that. Guitar case. That's really important. Don't let yourself get ripped off. First of all, let's talk about some commonly bought guitars. Probably the most common guitar is a Fender Strat over here. Fender Stratocaster. It's a good guitar, it's not too expensive, and they have a lot of even cheaper versions made in foreign countries that are pretty good guitars too, and great for beginners. And I would suggest checking that out if you like that style of guitar. It's commonly played in all kinds of music, from rock to pop to alternative to heavy metal to country. Everybody uses Strats. They're common. And Les Paul here. Now this is actually a copy of a Gibson Les Paul. Now a Gibson Les Paul is an extremely famous guitar. It's a totally cool guitar, but a basic one is going to cost you like $2,000 or more. So I don't think a beginning guitar player should be spending that kind of money on a guitar. It just doesn't make sense. My guitar is a Jackson Marty Friedman model. It's called a KE1, and my model is not custom at all. You can pull it right off the wall in a music store and it's exactly the same. Now this actual model is pretty expensive, so there are some cheaper versions that sound almost as good, made by the same company, and I suggest checking into a lot of the cheaper versions of like famous people's guitars, because you just never know. I mean, if you spend $3 grand on a guitar, you're going to have to work 2 jobs to pay for it, and then you won't have any time to practice it. So I say start off with something cheap and then work your way up. Let's go through everything that's on your guitar, all the names of everything that you need to know. This is the headstock. These are the tuning pegs. This is the nut. There's kind of like slots in there for which you can put the strings in. They kind of guide them along. These metal things are the frets. Behind each fret is where you're going to put your finger when you play guitar. So behind this first fret would be your first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth, and so on. These are your strings. There's 6 strings. You'll notice on an electric guitar, 3 of the strings are wound and 3 of the strings are not wound. All right? This is the neck and the fingerboard. The neck is this whole big thing, and the fingerboard is actually where your fingers are playing. This is the body. This is the pick guard. They call it that because if you're jamming like this, you're going to scratch up the body, so they put this white thing on there so you can scratch that instead. These 3 things are the pickups. This is what transmits the sound from your guitar to your amplification. That's what makes it an electric guitar, the fact that there's pickups in there. They each have a different sound to them, and this pickup selector gives you the choice of which sound you want to use for whatever it is you're playing. This is your volume knob, and these are your tone knobs. It's just like a stereo. It's that simple. This is a bridge, and this is where your strings go in through the back of the guitar, through the bridge and up the body and the neck like that. This is the jack. This is where you put your guitar cord in to go into an amplifier. And this is called a tremolo or a vibrato bar or a whammy bar, or there's all kinds of different names for it. It's not all that important. Sometimes it's fun to mess around with, but I wouldn't take it too seriously. And that's basically your guitar and your parts of your guitar. These are guitar strings. There's a lot of brands out there, a lot of good brands. This is the brand that I use. And there's a lot of sizes, and the sizes are very important when you're starting out with guitar. Now the size is corresponded with these numbers here, 0, 10, 0, 13. Those are each the size of the string as it corresponds with the guitar itself. So like this one would be the O10, this one would be the O13, and so on. Now, the bigger the number of that is, the heavier or thicker the string is. The heavier the string is, the more it hurts when you play it. So, you want to think about getting a lower number string when you're starting off playing guitar. Get like a 009 or even a 008. And it's just going to be easier for you to play. You're not going to rip your fingers up at the beginning. And when you get advanced and play longer, maybe you want to maybe you like pain or something and you want a heavier gauge string. But to start off with a lower gauge string, and it's just going to be easy to put your fingers on and play those chords nicely. All right, it's time to change strings, and we're going to start with the lowest string, which is the 6th string, the E string, the low E string. We're going to put it through the tailpiece. Put it through the hole there, pull it over the bridge, and pull it all the way out here, sticking it into the machine head. Okay, pull the string tight and leave yourself a little bit of slack, just about this much slack. Then pull the string under the string and then back over the string. That is the trick right there. If you can master that, you're totally good to go. And then wind it with the peg winder, just like this. You can get this at any music store for $1 or so. Gotta have it, because it's easier than turning it with your fingers. And just turn it until it's flush with the body and the neck of the guitar, and you're good to go. And if you want to keep your guitar neat, cut them off like this. Easy. The strings can be pretty expensive, so you don't need to go changing them all the time. Actually, you can keep strings on as long as they stay in tune, and that can be months. You know, you don't really need to change them that much. Sometimes you might break one string or something like that. Then you need to go to the music store and get that one string separately and change just that one. You don't need to change all your strings if you break one. But even if your strings get rusty and dirty, you can keep them on there as long as they stay in tune. And as long as they sound okay while you use your tuner, you can keep your strings on. This is one of the most important things that anybody could ever teach anybody about guitar. This is using a tuner, something that you must do. And if you do it from the beginning, you will develop a good ear, because your guitar will always be in tune and you'll be hearing the guitar the way it's supposed to be sounding. So let's use the tuner. It's really easy. You pick the lowest string, which is the 6th string, E, and then E is going to light up on this tuner. And then you look at this meter, and then you got to make it so this meter goes directly to the middle there, like this. You just keep tuning it up until this line goes directly into the middle, and then these two lights will both light up at the same time, meaning that it's even. So sometimes it takes a little fine tuning, but it's worth the time. Trust me. All right, so that looks pretty good. They're both lighting up there. That one's not lit up yet, but there you go. Okay, let's try the next string, which is the 5th string. Next string down, which is A. This one looks like it's a little bit too far to the right, so I'm going to bring it back down like here. And just keep tuning it until it's exactly in the middle. And both of those lights light up for you. Let's tune it a little bit more. When they both light up, you're good to go. And so you do this on all the strings, and then your guitar will be in tune, sounding good, and your ear will get used to the sound of a guitar that's in tune, and that is totally important. Do it. All right, there's lots of different kinds of picks, and they all have different purposes. And the most common pick is this Fender Heavy. And I use my own pick, which is fashioned after a Fender Heavy. It's got my name on it there, you see. The other kind of picks are thin picks. And those are used for like acoustic music and kind of light music. And there's also these big triangle-shaped picks, which are also used for, you know, pop music and stuff where big strumming guitars are necessary. But for rock music, start off with the Fender Heavy and then you can't go wrong. You can try others, but definitely start with the Fender Heavy. The best way to hold a pick is like this, between your first finger and thumb, and cover up most of the pick so just this point sticks out like that. Hold it like that, not too tight. A lot of people hold their picks so tight that their arms tense up and they can barely play their guitar. Just hold it loose about the same way you would hold a coin, you know, a quarter or a nickel or something like that. And try to relax and just hold it tight enough so it doesn't fall out. Just like this. Okay, the strap. Now a strap is something that you should be able to get for free if you're buying a guitar. Just ask the guy selling you the guitar to throw in a strap, and usually they will do that. You know, they'll give you a strap or a tuner or some cords or whatever, even a case. But get a strap and have the strap kind of low like this. Just look at pictures of famous guitar players and look where their straps are and sort of set yours sort of like that. Kind of low to your body like this. Now, if you hold your strap up too high, you're going to look something like this. God, I look like a geek. Maybe it's easier to play guitar like this with it way up here in your face like that, but you will definitely not pull any chicks like this. Keep your strap low. The way to hold your guitar neck is very simply, comfortably, kind of straight line angle like this. Not completely straight, but almost a straight line angled sort of up towards you. Not up like this in your face, not down like that, but kind of like a real comfortable angle, just like you see like in famous guitarist pictures. Just emulate the photos and you should pretty much get a good shape. Very comfortable like this. One thing about guitar straps is when you're jamming and having a good time, they're really easy to just come falling right off and your guitar drops to the ground. You do not look cool when that happens. So the way to deal with that is go to the music store, get something called a strap lock. And a strap lock looks like this, and you buy one at a music store. Any music store will have it, and they'll put it on for a couple extra bucks. Don't try to even bother putting it on yourself. Let the guy at the store do it for you. And bring your guitar in so they can put this kind of jack-looking thing on the back of your guitar, and then just slip it in the strap lock, and your guitar will never fall down again. If you're playing electric guitar, you're going to have to get yourself an amplifier. And the best way to buy an amplifier is at the same time that you buy your guitar, because usually the music stores want to sell as much gear as they can, and they'll give you discounts, and you can pretty much get a good deal if you buy it all at once. But if you can't do that, just search around and get a well-known company's amplifier. Don't get like some company that you've never heard of or that you've never seen in a guitar magazine or anything, or something that looks really cheap. Get something that's a decent piece of equipment, doesn't cost too much money, but it's going to last you for a good solid couple of years at least. So the amplifier that I actually use is this Crate Black Voodoo. I use that in my concerts and in the studio, and I use it around the world, and it's a great amp. And basically the small version of that is this practice amp. And this is perfect for like your bedroom jamming. It's good for like taking around to like parties and stuff and jamming with your friends, and it's basically good for everything except for playing over a drum set. You know, it's not quite loud enough for that, but it's definitely a powerful little amp. And there's not only this, but a lot of companies make similar amps, so go shop around and check stuff out. It's a guitar cord. This is what you need to plug into an amp. You can usually get a couple of these free when you buy a guitar or an amp. Just ask them to throw it in, and they're usually glad to do it. And if not, take your business elsewhere. So what you do is you plug it directly into your guitar, like this, and then you plug it into your amp, like this, and just jam. Here's some advice about your guitar cord. If you plug it in directly like this and you're jamming standing up, or you're playing with your friends in your band or whatever, somebody's going to step on the cord like that and it's going to come popping out just like that really easy, and you're not going to look cool. So an easy way to fix that is stick it under the strap like that, behind the strap, and then put it in the jack like that. Then no matter what you do, it's not going to come out, and you can jam again. Setting up the volume knobs on your guitar. It's so simple, just keep it up to 10 all the time. Some guitars also have tone controls. You want to keep them up to 10 as well, because if you turn them down, it doesn't do anything but make your guitar sound bad. So let's just keep everything all the way up to 10, as far as you can turn it. And that's the best thing to do with those. Some electric guitars have more than one pickup on it. This guitar happens to have 3. And with this pickup selector, you can get 5 different sounds out of these. So let me show you what the difference is. And when you have a guitar like this, you can choose for yourself. With it in this position, it sounds like this. If you move it up one, again, you get this. Again. Again. So every time you change pickup, it changes the color of your sound a little bit. Setting up your amp to jam through it. Now, a practice amp like this is like really simple, and it's just about the same as your stereo. You got your volume knob here like that. You got your tone knob, which is basically the same as treble. But there's one very significant difference. Guitar amps usually have something called a gain. And what gain does, it changes your sound from being clean like this to being more aggressive like this. And if you turn the gain up really high, you get something like this. But got to be careful with that gain. I like to call it the female reducer, because the more you turn the gain up, the less chicks are interested in what it is you're playing. So use it sparingly. It really makes you sound amateur when you crank it up all the time. But have a good time anyway, and just mess around with the gain a little bit. An electric guitar is a pretty solid instrument. I mean, there's not really a whole lot that can go wrong with it unless you're playing it in the shower or something like that. Pretty common problem is sometimes your jack right here might get a little bit loose and then start to short out a little bit, but that's nothing that can't be fixed with a pair of pliers. It's very simple. And other than changing strings, normal maintenance is not really that necessary. If something really goes wrong with it, do not be afraid to bring it into your local music store or contact the customer service department of the brand that makes your guitars. Because if it's a good company, they'll be there to help you with any kind of problems. And especially the people at the music store, because you've got to develop a relationship with them from day one anyway. So, you know, even with small problems, if there are problems, bring it in there. Don't worry about it. They do it every day. That's their job. You're going to become a musician, not a technician. An amplifier is an even more solid instrument than a guitar is. I mean, really nothing can go wrong with it other than a tube blowing out. And that is very easy to take care of. Someone at your local music store will replace a tube for you, or someone from the customer service department from the amp company will send you a new tube, and all you have to do is throw that in there. But again, I suggest to go to the music store and let them do it for you, because let them be the technicians and you be the guitar player. Let's talk about effects or foot pedals, or just the things that make your guitar sound cool. A lot of guitarists definitely use effects to kind of color their sound and develop their own personality, and you can do the exact same thing. So let's go through a few of them. First one that we're going to go through is a distortion pedal. Now you use a distortion kind of the same way you use gain, like I was telling you before. It's basically the same thing, but some amps don't have gain on it, and some amps' gain doesn't really sound as good as this particular practice amp does. So in that case, you want to get yourself a distortion box and use it on a clean sound. For example, here's my clean sound going directly into this amp. It's very clean, but now if I step on this foot pedal, it's going to give it a whole new sound. Now the thing about the distortion pedal is it's used for like heavy metal and heavy rock, and sometimes it's used on guitar solos in pop music too. But it's generally a tool that can be abused if you use it too much, and it's definitely going to lose you a lot of chicks if you use it all the time. So use it sparingly, just like gain. Another real popular pedal is a pedal called the wah-wah. Now, everybody from Jimi Hendrix to your brother has played one of these things. It's so common that you're almost sick of it, but sometimes it just sounds so cool that you got to use it. And here's what it does. Start off with a basic sound like this. And you step on this wah-wah, and then you use your foot to kind of accentuate the sound like. And it really adds some personality to your notes. Now, one thing that you can do, if you think that standing on a pedal looks sort of like a hippie or something, you can get a pedal that's called the auto-wah, which sounds exactly like a wah-wah, but you don't have to stand on the pedal. You just step on it. It kind of does the footwork for you. But this is a real common thing to have around, and it's kind of fun to mess around with. Jam on it. Another totally cool pedal is one called a digital delay. Now what this does is it makes you sound like you're in some kind of echo chamber. It's really cool, and it makes your playing sound like you're in a big coliseum playing for thousands of people. Now check it out. If you play guitar without it, it sounds very plain. You turn this thing on, the digital delay pedal has a million cool things in it that you can do. If you just mess around with it, you'll definitely find some stuff that you like. Here's another cool thing that you can do with it. A lot of fun. Another really common foot pedal is called a chorus, and this pedal is used often in quiet parts of songs, like the clean guitar parts, and a lot of ballads always have a chorus on the guitar, and alternative music uses a chorus on just about everything. And what a chorus does is it puts your guitar slightly in and out of tune, so it just sounds a little bit more mysterious and a little bit cooler, and adds some personality to your guitar. Check it out. First I'll play guitar without the chorus, and then I'll add the chorus so you can tell the difference. Now here's with the chorus. Definitely has a nicer ring to it. It makes it a little bit more pleasant to listen to. This is a good pedal to get used to because it makes your guitar sound professional even if you're playing simple parts. If you get bored with your practice amp because it only makes one or two different sounds that you think are cool, the thing you need to get is called an amp emulator. This one I have is called the Sans Amp GT2, and all you do is step on it and it gives you like 10 different choices of different amps that all those sounds can come out of your amp. You know, it turns your little practice amp into 10 different amps. Let me quickly give you an example of that. So here's just the amp as it is playing. And now I'll go scrolling through all these amp choices that I have with this pedal. So they're similar, but they're a little bit different. And if you tweak the knobs around a little bit more, it just gives you like more amps for your money. It's kind of a lot of professionals use it, but you can definitely have some fun with it on your own, and it keeps you from getting bored of the same old sound. Cool thing about foot pedal effects is you can put them together in a line like this and make your own blend of sounds. You know, you can use as many as you want, you know, 3 or 4 or even 10 pedals in a row to make the ultimate blend of the sounds that you like. You got to be careful though, when you use too many it tends to get really noisy, so try to use only the ones that you like the best. Use a little cord in between the pedals like this. That kind of eliminates noise as best as you can. What some people do is they use a multi-effects unit to do just that. You know, instead of like tying a whole bunch of pedals together, they use this multi-effects unit type of thing. It's kind of like a big old box that has all the effects in it. But it tends to be extremely complicated, and it's kind of, for me, it's not as much fun as choosing the pedals one by one and making them blend your own way. So those are 2 different ways to go, but I would say go to your music store and check out all the pedals because there's literally hundreds of them and so many cool things to try. So you should just go and find the ones that you like. All right, you made it to the musical section. We're going to actually play the guitar. We're going to play some rhythms, we're going to play some leads, and we're going to just talk about being in a band and all that cool stuff and how to do it soon. Everything in this part is going to be really simple, easy to play stuff, so you don't have to do it in any particular order. You can go straight from the beginning to the end, or you can jump around and do the parts that you like best in whatever order you like. Only thing is, you have to do it all, because if you do, you will be a decent guitar player and on your way to becoming an awesome guitar player. So, let's get started. Okay, if you've never picked up a guitar before and you want to just try out an amp or try out a guitar, here's one thing that you can do, and at least it'll sound like you're playing a chord and you sort of have something going on. It's very easy. All you do is take your first finger and put it on this 5th string on the 2nd fret with your left hand. And the right hand, you're going to use the pick the way I told you before and pick the first 2 strings. Actually, it's the lowest 2 strings here, that's string number 6, the E string, and string number 5, the A string. All you have to do is hit them both at the same time, and you get this. You can pick it a bunch of times. Like that, and to change it, it's really pretty easy. All you have to do is take that exact same fingering and move it across 1 string. So take it off the A string, the 5th string, and put it onto the D string, which is the 4th string, And this time, only play these two strings with your right hand, the 5th string and the 4th string together. Then you have a different chord. These are probably the two most basic chords in rock, and they're used all the time. And it's just that simple. So you can change back and forth like this. That should be your very first exercise, and those two chords are going to come up forever, so just get used to them. They're simple. If you want to play guitar, there's one thing you definitely have to know, and that is the name of all the strings. There's only 6 of them, so it's pretty easy. The lowest string is called E, or the 6th string. Sometimes they call it the low E because it's the lowest sounding string that we have. Okay, the 5th string is A, the 4th string is D, the 3rd string is G, 2nd string is B, and 1st string is also E, just like the 6th string, but they call this the high E because it's got a higher sound. Another thing you definitely need to know is to find out the names of the notes on the fretboard. You have to be able to find them out. You have to know the system, and it's a very easy system. It just takes a little memorizing, okay? The only thing you really need to know is kind of the musical alphabet, and that goes E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. And that's the whole thing. You might have noticed that there's no E sharp and there's no B sharp. You just skip right over that and go to the next letter. So let me give you an example of how to find these notes, starting with the 6th string on the low E string. Okay, check it out. So open like this. That's E. F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. Back to E. So the low open E string, 6th string is E. Way up here on the 12th fret is E again. So these notes up here, it just starts the whole same system all over again. E, F, F sharp, G, and so on. And for all the other strings, it's exactly the same way, except on the 5th string, which is the A string, you start A sharp, B, C, and so on. So you don't have to memorize every single note on here, but you do have to know how to find the notes. So if somebody says, what's this note? You can just go, oh, well, that's E, F, F sharp, G. That's all you need to know. You need to know how to find the notes. So go for it. Okay, one thing that is absolutely essential to rock guitar playing is the bar chord. And this is kind of an abbreviated version of a bar chord. It's actually easier to play than a bar chord, and it's used actually more commonly than a bar chord. It's kind of a half of a bar chord, but we call it a power chord in rock and roll, but you guys can call it whatever you want. Basically, you take those simple chords that I showed you at the beginning, those 1-finger chords like this. Instead of using your 1st finger for those, let's use your 2nd finger. Exactly the same thing. Okay, let's name these chords. This one is going to be E because it's partially based on the low E string. And this one is going to be A because it's partially based on the A string. So you've got 2 chords. This is E, this is A. Now you name these chords moving all the way up exactly the same way as you named the notes on the fretboard. For example, this will be E. If you move everything up 1 fret, it's going to be F, 1 fret F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and so on. And the same thing goes for the A string. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. You really have to practice that and get it down. It won't take long, but you'll be doing this for a long time. Okay, there's some other basic chords that you need to know. And at first they sound kind of like folk music or country music. They sound real open and kind of twangy, and they're not really as inspiring as those rock chords that I just showed you, but you definitely have to learn them, and they sound good when you're playing kind of mellow stuff and pop songs and ballads and stuff like that, and you can even fit them in rock and heavy metal too. So you have to know them, but just get past the original sound of them and you'll be fine. Let's start with a G chord. Your left hand should be like this, and you strum all 6 strings. Next will be a D chord, and fingers one at a time would be like this. This here, and that there. And you only strum the highest 4 strings. Next chord would be E minor, and this is a really easy one. Use your second and third finger like this, and strum all 6 strings. Next one is C, and you put your fingers down like that, and then you strum the highest 5 strings, leaving the low 6th string out. Okay, next chord is a little bit tricky. It's a little bit difficult to hold your fingers all down at the same time, but you'll get used to it after a while. It's called an F chord, and it looks like this. You strum the highest 4 strings, and then you put your hand down like this. And the hard part is getting your first finger to hold these 2 strings down at the same time. It's kind of tough, but a little practice and your finger will get used to it. Okay, next chord is an E chord. The one before I showed you was an E minor chord. This one is actually an E major chord. And this one is very useful. I'll show you why in a minute. Looks like this. One at a time, your fingers go down like that, and you strum all 6 strings. And while I'm talking about this, another good habit to keep in mind is not let your knuckle bend down like that. Make sure your knuckle stands up as best as it can. Anyway, the reason why this E chord is so important is you can turn this into full bar chords like this. That would be E, F, F sharp, G, and so on all the way up and down the neck the way I showed you before with those mini bar chords. And this last one that I'll show you is A. Now with your third finger, just hold down these strings, the 4th string, the 3rd string, and the 2nd string, and pick the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. Now the same thing goes with this A chord when you're making bar chords. A sharp, B, C. So to play a full bar chord, this looks like an E chord, right? This form is called the E form bar chord because this chord is basically made out of an E form. E, F, F sharp, G. This is made out of an A form, so it goes A sharp, B, C. That's all you need to know. Those are the most basic chords, and you definitely have to know them. All right, to play rhythm in a song, you're going to need to strum the chords, and there's a lot of different ways to strum the chords. And I'll give you 2 examples, one for more of a pop, kind of light rock style of strumming chords, and one for more heavy jamming rock, heavy metal type of thing. That style of strumming, it's a little bit different. So let's do both of those. First, we'll start with the basic guitar strumming style. We'll use the G chord, which we learned earlier, and then I'll show you some other chords to change. Okay, now let's change from G to D. Now the idea of changing chords is to go from one to the other as smooth as possible. Now when you change, you want all your fingers on your left hand to go at once if you possibly can. I know it's not going to do like that immediately. Your fingers are going to want to move slowly, but with time and with practice it will get there. So let's go from G to D. Now, another kind of strumming is a more heavy right hand type of strumming, and this is kind of used in heavy rock and kind of punk rock and heavy metal, and it's a real common way to strum heavy rock chords. You need to turn up the gain a little bit on your amp for this, or use a distortion box. But let's play those same two chords, G and D, and you'll hear the difference. Now watch my right hand closely. Okay, the idea is to change chords smoothly like that, also with these bar chords, but when you use your right hand with all downstrokes, it has kind of a more punk sound to it. And I'll give you one more example of that really quickly. Just the same thing faster, and you'll understand what I mean. That's basically what you should work your strumming up to. And it's really not that hard to move your right hand that fast. The whole thing is getting your left hand to change chords smoothly. But little practice, you can do it. All right, most songs are made up out of chord progressions or chord changes. It's just putting chords in a particular order that makes the song the way you want it to be. To play songs, you have to be able to change chords smoothly. And the easy way to do that is to practice with these bar chords. Okay? Let's start with the E form bar chord and go to the A form bar chord. And back and forth, really slow. And then move up. Okay, so once you got that done, do the same thing going backwards. It takes a little working on because your fingers don't want to move that quickly, so definitely take the time and get used to moving from this form to this form. A good way to make use of your basic chords is to arpeggiate them, which means pick them one note at a time. And often this is really good for moody songs where you've got a really soulful vocal going over a really kind of sad kind of guitar part. I'll give you an example using the chords that we already know. Watch my right hand as I pick going all the way down and all the way up in a rhythm. We'll start with some simple chords like this. That type of thing should be done with all the chords that you know. And just pick up and down, and slow as even as you possibly can. One thing you need to do sometimes when you're playing rhythm is mute the strings. And by muting, I mean deaden the strings enough so you still hear the note, but it has kind of really muffled sound. Now the way to do this is by taking your right palm and kind of tightly holding it down onto your string so the notes don't really ring out that well. Let me give you an example of muting. See what my right hand did that time? Now watch, I'm going to do the same thing without muting and watch the difference. Listen to the difference as well. Can you hear it sounds much more open and much bigger? So here's the exercise what I want you to do. I'm going to go back and forth from muting to not muting. Watch my right hand and watch the palm. Now you're going to have to get your tuners back out for this one. This is a technique called detuning, and it's really common in ultra heavy music. And the thing to do is get your tuner out and take your low E string and tune it down until the D light on your tuner lights up. And once the D light on your tuner lights up, tune it normally to D so the meter reads exactly in the middle and the lights all light up evenly, just like I showed you with the other strings. So it's going to sound something like this. So your E string is going to sound really low, but the good thing about that is you can play chords totally simply with like one finger or even no fingers. Check this out. Totally easy, but sounds really heavy and very manly. Okay, I'm going to give you some examples of some phrases that are typical to particular styles of music. Like in rock music, a real common phrase is to take like one of those mini bar chords and strum it like this. Now all you need to do is strum the 6th string and the 5th string straight over and over like that, and then alternate with your little finger stretching out to here like that, which at the beginning is kind of a stretch, but you will get used to it. So a rock pattern would look something like this. Now the same exact chords, if you were in a heavy metal band, would be played a little bit differently. It looks something like this. You'd get rid of this thing with your little finger and you would slide back and forth with these chords. Let me show you. And also with your right hand, you would kind of hold the strings a little bit tighter to give it a more clamped down kind of sound. You'll see what I mean. Check it out. That's really a typical heavy metal kind of guitar playing. I mean, it's very easy on the left hand, and the right hand is holding the strings down kind of tight so the notes are kind of deadened a little bit. Now, if you're like in an alternative band or something like that, more of a kind of modern rock or pop music, what they like to do a lot in that type of music is use a lot of open strings, so the strings kind of clang around and jangle a lot and give it a real kind of a, not a folky sound, but just a real kind of open string sound of guitar, and that's become real popular lately. And if you were to take those same two chords, which were A and B, and play it in an alternative style, you might use a strumming style like this and these two chords. Check it out. I showed you how to arpeggiate a chord doing rhythm. Now I'm going to show you how to arpeggiate a chord doing a solo. Now it's really simple. You just take a chord and play the notes one at a time. This is a real common way to do it with the chord A minor. Something that you have to do when you're playing a solo or a melody or sometimes even on rhythm is something that's called hammering on. Now, hammering on is like this. You need 2 fingers to do it. You start with 1 finger that's down on the fretboard like this, and you pick it, and then after you pick it, you take another finger and without picking the note, kind of as if it were a hammer, bring it down to the fretboard. So you get something like this. You can see the advantage of this is I only pick once and I get 2 notes. And when you're playing a lot of notes eventually, you'll see why not picking so many notes is really a good thing to do. So hammering on is making your finger like a hammer and bringing it down without picking. Now, the opposite of hammering on is called pulling off, which is pretty self-explanatory. You just pull off the same way you hammered on. You start with your 3rd finger down and you pull off, only picking once. Okay, a lot of people try to pull off straight up or towards them. The trick is to pull off away from you. Almost as if this finger is a pick and you're going. Pretend this finger's a pick and you're using it to pull away from the string. That's the best way to think about that. So hammering on and pulling off, I'll give you a couple exercises for that. Then maybe move over to the next string. Work with those exercises for a little while and you'll get the hang of hammering on and pulling off pretty quickly. Basic lead playing is basically just connecting a lot of lead patterns. And what a pattern is a bunch of notes that repeat in some kind of order. So let's take a few of these patterns and I'll show you how to practice them so you can get them smoothly and gradually get cleaner and cleaner and better. So the first one uses that pulling off technique I was talking to you about. We're going to start with our fingers in this position here and we're going to pull off on the 2nd string. And then on the 3rd string, pick this. That's a really common lead pattern. When you hear it, it's usually played a little bit faster. But that's the way it's done. It's just that simple. Just do it really, really slowly and build up to speed. And don't even really worry about speed right now. Just get your fingers around these licks and just be able to play it. Speed will come natural. Okay, playing basic lead is basically about making variations of licks because really there's only so many licks, but there's a million ways to change them around. So let's take the lick that we just did a minute ago and let's move it over to the next 2 strings. Instead of being right here, let's move it into these strings and frets here. So it's going to start on the 7th fret on the 3rd string, and the stretch isn't going to be quite so bad. It's going to be looking like this. So if you get it repeating, it's going to sound like this. Okay, if you want to take that one further and make a variation of that, let's just do 2 pull-offs and go like this. If you want to take that variation one step further, we can alternate these things that we just learned. So we go like this. And if you really want to be rad, stick them all together. That's what variations is all about. An expressive voice that the lead guitar player has is done by bending a string. Now this kind of gives your guitar kind of almost a crying sound, and you hear it all the time, and it really makes a solo stand out or a melody stand out, and it's very cool. It's done like this. The B string is probably the easiest string to bend, so let's bend that first. The idea is to make it sound like this. Okay, you're starting from this note, and you want to make the pitch go all the way up to this note. You don't want it to go too high or too low. You want it exactly from here to here. So you get... Now you're noticing also that my first and second finger are also down on the string, giving it support. You'll find it's much easier to bend like this than just with your third finger. Even I can barely do that. It's very unnatural. So keep these down. Don't hold them down too tight. Just leave them there to support the string. And that's the idea. Once you get to the pitch you want, shake the string a little bit. Now you were probably wondering what I was talking about when I said take the note and shake it on that last segment. Basically what that shaking is called vibrato, and that's what makes the note sound listenable. If you don't use it, it just sounds terrible. It just doesn't sound good. You got to give it like a human element, kind of a voice, kind of a vibration. Now, to practice vibrato, you got to take it to different strings and do the same exact thing on the G string. Go going from this note to this. So you get, when you reach the note that you want, shake it. Keeping your first and second finger down for support. Now, you don't have to be bending a string to get vibrato. Sometimes you can just play a note and vibrate it that way. So do it like this as well. See how my finger goes back and forth? It goes back this way just about as much as it goes forth this way. It doesn't go all the way down here like that or all the way up here. It goes evenly this way and that way, creating a pleasant sound. So to practice this, do all these techniques together slowly, one at a time. Now, any note that you play, you can put vibrato on like this. Practice it with each finger. And don't worry if it doesn't sound so great at the beginning. It takes a little bit of time, but it's something that you definitely have to have. And it also gives each person their own originality, too. So really listen closely when you do it. Okay, another common thing to do as a lead guitar player is what's called a trill. And a trill is basically a succession of pull-offs. And if you look at it slowly, it looks like this. If you notice, I only picked the very first one. I didn't keep picking after that. And the way you often hear it is quite fast. And if you do it slowly and work your way up, you can get speed like that. But something to do with trills is there's an easier way to do a trill, and it's only with one finger. Say like on the G string, just take your first finger, and on the second fret, just pull it off and keep pulling off. It's a very common thing to do, and kind of fun sometimes. The most commonly used scale in playing lead guitar is the basic blues scale, I like to call it. And some people call it the Bach scale, some people call it the pentatonic scale. I think you should just refer to it as the blues scale because it just sounds like blues when you play it. And these are the notes that are in the scale, and you have to kind of memorize the shape of these notes. So I'll play them slowly for you. and back down. This is the basic blues scale in A because it started on the A note here. If you remember E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So this is the blues scale in A. So if I were to do the whole same thing here, that would be the blues scale in G. Just a little bit of information that you need to know. Anyway, practice going up and down this scale and just get comfortable with the way the notes sound. And if you notice, some of those repeating licks that I did before were right in that scale. Very important stuff to remember. Basic blues scale, you will be seeing a lot of it. Like I said before, basic soloing is often just connecting a bunch of patterns together. The same thing goes with scales. When you're in this blues scale, like I was talking to you about this one, and you're kind of going in and out of those notes, what you want to do to make yourself sound a little bit smarter, a little bit more advanced, is do kind of like a blues scale part 2, I like to call it. It's a little bit more advanced. There's a couple more notes in it, but let me show them to you because it's no more difficult than the first one. It's the same blues scale I just showed you with a few more notes in between. Check it out. I'll play it really slow. So instead of, it's kind of got notes in between. And back down looks like this. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Another scale that you'll need to know is a minor scale. This one we'll do in A minor because we just did some blues scales in A. And so this A minor scale looks like a variation of those blues scales. It's really simple. It looks similar to what we did before, but just a little bit different, so follow closely. Going back down will look like this. And a way to be able to tell these scales apart from each other is take little sections of them that are characteristic of that scale and work on those. Like the first couple strings of this scale. Just get used to the way that sounds and remember that that's a minor scale. But the terminology is not so important. Just getting your fingers on the strings and listening to it is. All right, you heard me talk about the blues scale, and you heard me talk about the minor scale. And maybe you're thinking, why isn't he mentioning the major scale? Well, there's a reason for that. I mean, the major scale, it just doesn't sound that cool for rock guitar. It's not really inspiring. I mean, when I think of the major scale, I think of like Jingle Bells or Mary Had a Little Lamb or some songs like that. And it's just not the most cool thing to pick up a guitar and play when you're beginning. You want to do stuff that just sounds a little bit more rock to your ear. So I'm going to leave that out. But what I am going to do is I'm going to stay in the same key of A like we've been, and I'm going to show you like 5 patterns, repeating patterns that you can practice slowly, one at a time, and gradually build up a little speed. That doesn't mean you have to be extremely fast on this stuff. Just build up enough speed so things repeat with some sense of rhythm to it. Doesn't have to be fast at all. Just slow and even is all I need you to do. So let's take some of these patterns and I'll explain them as we go along. Check it out. Okay, that one used the pull-off technique that we talked about a little while ago. This one also uses the pull-off technique, but I'm going to do it with 2 different fingers, so check it out. It's all going to be on this high E string. It's going to look like this. The idea of this is to build up the control with your 3rd finger just as strong as with your 2nd finger. So when you get a rhythm going, it's going to sound a little bit like this. Okay? And a variation of that would be to move the exact same thing to the next string across, the B string. So it would look like this. So together they would look like this. Very slowly it would look like this. Okay? Another thing that is a real common lead pattern is bending and pulling off. There's 2 ways to do it. You can pull off to the last note, or you can pick the last note. Pull off. Pick. This is really important, and it's going to build up some strength in your fingers. So if you repeat it, it's going to be. It's going to be like that. Okay? Another one would be something that's going to get all 3 fingers working together. Something like this. The idea of that is to get your fingers working independently, and it's easy to move this thing around. So you can do this pattern on any of the strings in the scale that I showed you. So the way to practice these things is very slowly and get a rhythm going with them. And try as many variations as you possibly can using these scale configurations that I showed you. It's really not that difficult. The whole thing is don't be discouraged. Just play it really slowly and try to keep the unwanted noise out. Just play slowly and as clean as you possibly can. Keep a rhythm going. That's the way to do it. Another picking technique that you might want to try is called alternate picking, which just means you pick up and down, up and down, up and down in that sort of pattern. Some people pick it up really naturally, some people don't, and it's really not important that you master this and play it all the time. I'm just giving you an option of a different way to pick, and sometimes it sounds pretty neat. But let's do a real simple exercise for alternate picking. Let's go into our A scale, our A minor scale, and play these 2 notes. Notice that my right hand is picking up and down each time. And if you want to make it a little bit trickier, you can add 2 more notes into it. So. picking up songs off of albums. It seems impossible, and it's really not. It's really not that difficult. The way to do it is to find songs that you know pretty well that have parts in them that repeat over and over and over again. A simple pattern, a chord progression, something that sounds very simple to your ear. It doesn't change quickly, just something that keeps doing the same thing over and over again. What you do is you get your guitar in tune and you play along with it. And you kind of fish around for chords until they sort of sink in there. And when it seems to sound right to your ear, that means you're onto something. And if something repeats enough, then you're going to have time to pick up what the chord changes are in it, believe it or not. And it's not important that you play every little part that you hear, like every little solo phrase or every little rhythm lick or anything that you hear popping in and out. What's important is that you can just play along from one part to the end of the next part. That's all. You don't have to fill in all the blanks. Just play a simple chord change throughout the whole part. I'll give you an example of that right now. So it's simple, keep it simple, something that repeats over and over again, gives you time to figure out what it is. There's a lot of albums out there that are going to help you play guitar. You just got to find the right ones with easy guitar on them. And stuff that's easy to play, you feel good, you know, you get it done, you know, in a quick period of time. It's not brain surgery, you know, it's not very difficult. But if you start out learning stuff like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and this really progressive stuff, you're going to get discouraged because it just ain't that simple. But there are a lot of albums out there that you should check out. Some of them are, okay, let's see, Green Day has a lot of great albums. I think the biggest hit was called Dookie, and that's a good album for easy guitar. Offspring has an album called Smash. The Donnas has an album called Get Skin Tight, that's really good. And what else? The Ramones. Any Ramones album is going to be good for easy guitar. There's a good compilation of the Ramones called All the Stuff and More. You should get that and just play straight through it. All the songs have nothing but bar chords in them. Aside from that, you should get maybe the Eagles' Greatest Hits 1 and 2. And those have a lot of G chords, D chords, and C chords in them, and you'll be able to pick them out pretty easily. And you know, start with those, and anything that's like that and closer to the type of music that you want to play, go check them out. All right, here is an example of how to play along with a song on an album. Now, first of all, you want to pick a simple song, either one that you can pick out the backing chords by yourself or have somebody show you the backing chords or whatever. But the main thing is, again, I have to stress, you do not need to play every single part of the song. You don't need to play the lead solos or the melodies or anything. Just be able to keep a chord going behind the whole back of the song, and that's pretty much your goal. And you'll move up from there, but don't worry about all the little parts. Just be able to hold down some kind of chord in the background. So let's jam it. If you ever want to develop a sense of timing, you need to get this thing called a metronome. And it comes in various shapes and sizes. Most of them are little small boxes, and they make a continuous beat. And with this beat, you should play along with it all the things that you're working on, whether it be rhythm or lead or any type of thing, chord changes. I'll give you a couple examples of things that you can use a metronome for to practice. Let me give you some advice about using your practice time. Don't waste your time practicing. Don't sit around 8 hours a day playing guitar, noodling around. All you really need is about an hour a day. If you can stick to that every day, or even less, a half hour will do fine if you're focused on what it is you're doing. Now, things you should avoid is like being distracted, like playing guitar in front of the TV, just noodling around, you know, not really having an aim to what you're doing. Just be focused on what you want to do. Have a goal, you know. Today I want to learn this song. Today I want to work on this song. Today I want to work on changing chords smoothly, or any of the techniques that we've gone over. Have a goal for each day and get in there and do it. And even if you only spend a half hour a day on it, that's a lot better than a guy sitting around 6 hours just wanking off. A lot of guitar players waste a ton of time learning a bunch of stuff that is completely useless to them only because they think they have to learn it, because their friends are doing it, or because they think you're going to get good by doing something. The only thing that you really need to learn is the music that you like. Concentrate on the music that you like. And if it's difficult music, then of course you're going to have to learn simpler things along the way, but try to find music that you like that is not too hard on guitar, so you get encouraged as you learn, you know what I mean? If it just seems too depressing if you try to learn these hard things and you can't do it. Find simple stuff that you particularly like, that you want to learn, and make that your goal. Don't learn what you think is going to make you good. Learn what you like to hear, and then you'll enjoy your guitar playing a lot more. Having a guitar teacher is a really good investment for a beginning guitarist. And even if you can't afford to have one every week or every month or so, if you can get a lesson every once in a while, it's really going to help you out at the beginning stages. Now, you got to be really careful. There's a lot of guys teaching, and a lot of guys don't really teach you what it is you want to learn. They teach you what they can teach best. You got to shop around, man. You got to find guys who are going to teach you exactly the kind of music you like and get you on the right track. You don't want to go to some teacher wanting to learn how to play rock, and the guy wants to teach you country or jazz or something else that you can't stand. So, you know, take a lesson here and there, and, you know, if you like the teacher, if he teaches you the way you want to learn, then stick around. If not, you can go somewhere else and find someone who's going to suit you better. Let me tell you how I improved when I was a beginning guitarist. I didn't practice a whole lot. I practiced about an hour or a half hour a day, not really much more than that. And I practiced really simple music. But I think what helped me the most was I put myself in high-pressure situations all the time. Like, just when I could barely play anything at all, I was already trying to jam with other guys who were better than I was, just to, like, learn how they played and watch other people play and just figure out stuff and steal licks from guys and stuff like that. And I think that is really, really important. Being able to, like, get in front of other people, and even though you don't think you're all that good, just acting like you have some confidence, like you know how to play. Acting like you have confidence almost is as good as actually having the confidence. And then before you know it, you've got the confidence. So sometimes you just got to, like, get in front of people and jam. you got to get into a band. You got to get into a band as soon as you possibly can. Even if you can barely stand up with a guitar, you got to get into a band. Because I tell you, when you learn by playing in a band and you make a mistake in front of people, you're going to correct that mistake so much faster than how fast you'd correct it if you were in your bedroom making a mistake. So get into a band right away. So finding band members, it's really not that hard. You can find people at your school who also play guitar or another instrument, or you can find people on the bulletin board looking for other musicians to jam with, or you can put an ad up yourself saying, I'm a beginning guitarist, I want to join a band or form a band, and just jam with everybody who comes along, and you'll weed out the people who you like and people who have similar musical tastes to you, and just don't rule out anything, try jamming with everybody. You'd be really surprised what you learn along the way. Most likely before you find an actual band to jam in, you'll find another guitar player or a bass player that you can jam, 2 guys at a time or something. And what you want to do is just be a cool dude, take turns playing each other's favorite songs and learn what that guy likes to play and let him know what you already know and kind of trade information with each other and stuff like that. And always try to find someone who you think is better than you are. It's just like playing tennis. You want to play with somebody who's better than you are, so the game is interesting and challenging, and just don't let that guy know that you know that he's better than you are, because he probably thinks you're better than him. So it's really a mental thing, but try to stick around guys who you think are better than you are. And, just be fair, try to learn what that guy likes to play, and, don't be ashamed to show him that you don't know everything, just jam with people and have fun, and that's the way you work your way up. Once you're able to play a whole song from beginning to end, that means you're pretty much ready to join a band. So when you do actually find the band, you got to remember that a band is like a sports team, you know what I mean? It's all about teamwork. It's not about you anymore. It's about a team. So, just have common courtesy when you're playing in a band. Don't turn your guitar so loud that nobody else can hear themselves. And just be a cool guy, and try to learn the songs that the other guys want to learn as well as your songs. And you'll find that you make a lot more friends along the way and a lot more musicians. And never let on that you think that you're not much of a good player, Keep kind of an attitude of yeah, I can do that. Even if maybe you can't, just act like you can and people will believe it. So that's really good advice when you're in a band. And believe me, I'm doing that even right now as we speak. There are many, many ways to write songs. There's so many ways that I cannot even count them. But I'm going to give you a very general rule of writing a simple song. There are 3 parts. The first part is called the verse. And that's like a chord pattern or a chord progression, something that repeats where you start to tell the story of the song. The second part is called the bridge. It's kind of like the middle section, getting you ready for the big punchline of the song. And the third part, the main part, is the chorus. And that's what the title of the song is. So you basically need 3 guitar parts to write a simple song. I mean, you can do it with less, but the most simple basic structure is verse, bridge, chorus. And each one of those has a different chord progression, or like a chord change, similar to the stuff that I jammed along with before, where you play 2 or 3 chords and you repeat, you repeat, you repeat. So that's one way to write songs, is create them like that. Another way, which is very common, is to learn a song and change a couple notes around, change a couple chords around, and make it your own. And you would be very surprised, when you listen to songs, you say, hey, that song sounds like another song I know. That's because the guys who wrote that song just sort of copied it from another song and changed 1 or 2 notes around here and there. So you can do that too. Probably the coolest thing about being in a band is getting gigs, being able to play live, go out and do some shows. Once you got a band together and you can play 20 or 30 minutes at a time, a bunch of songs, they don't have to be perfect, but you can play, okay, you can get your way through a song. It's time to do some gigs. Just start right away, That's the way to build up some confidence, put some pressure on, get out there and play in front of people. Some of the best beginning gigs to get are at your high school or junior high school. Your auditorium or lunchroom, whatever, play at lunchtime for free, or high school dance or whatever, and just do it, because half the audience is going to be chicks. right from the start, 50%. That is a high percentage. I mean, people in professional bands play mostly to guys all the time, you know, but if you play in your junior high or your high school, half the people there are already chicks, so you got a good thing going for you. Aside from that, there's other gigs that you can set up. You know, you can play like in the local Legion Hall, you can rent it out for a couple $100. You buy a couple kegs of beer, and you charge people a few dollars to get in. They're drinking the beer, and you play in front of these people. You create your own gigs. You create your own shows. And even if the band is not that good, this is the way you improve. This is the way you make yourself a musician. Not by practicing in your bedroom, you know, because guys could practice for years in the bedroom, and then once they get in front of people, they freeze up, you know. So I say that you should get in front of people and play live from as early as possible. It's really, really a good thing to do. So set these things up yourself. I mean, sometimes bowling alleys will have a night where you can come in there and have your band jam, you know, or the Lodge or Legion Hall, anything like that. So make it happen. Get out there and play as a band as soon as you can. Now that wasn't so difficult, was it? I'm glad you made it to the end of this video. Now you have all the information that you need to play guitar, join a band, all that cool stuff. You know, if you keep doing this, you're going to develop your own style, and you're really going to become a good guitar player because you have a solid foundation to start off with. But for now, just have fun, get out there and rock, and I'll see you on tour.